welcome to our tasting.
Yes, we're super excited about this.
So, it's going to be a lot of fun. So we're going to give a little introduction here, and we've never done one this way. So we have our outline, so we're excited. But I'm Kara, and I run the kitchen here at Maize Valley Farm Market Winery and Brewery, and we're excited that I'm excited that you're here tasting with us. So
yes, and then I am Nate, and I've been here a long time. So I've done it all. I've been out back. I've done bar, everything. So
he was our basket maker this
I made
this
a lot of
winter.
Baskets. Yeah,
so we are recording this. Today's the 29th of December. So yeah, if you're watching this, depending on when your certificate you're deemed that, just letting you know it is just after Christmas.
Exactly. So just real quick too, if you've never seen us before, or if you are big fans of Maize Valley, then Kara and I do a live video every Wednesday night on Facebook. So we usually talk about a wine or a beer or fun things that are going on here at the market. This is kind of a quick little who we are.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So moving on, we normally, obviously 2020 has been quite the year. And if you're watching this in 2021, then hopefully it's better. But we'll see. So we usually do guided tastings here at the Winery and Brewery anyway. So it's something that we've always done. In the past, you were able to come up to the bar and taste.
Yeah.
And we used to do the wine package tastings. And that was kind of like a little bit of the inspiration, for this video and for this tasting package. So, we used to do, you'd come in, purchase a package, and you could actually sit at your table with 10 people, and we'd do a guided tasting for you. And we always talk a little bit about the history of Maize Valley and all of that. So we're going to give a little introduction to that too. But we've been here since 2001. So cool thing here in this building. And long before we were a winery and brewery, they dairy farmed. We farmed all kinds of grain and things like that. But they opened this as a market in 2001. And then in 2005, they became a winery and started the restaurant process, kind of. So, and then we've been a brewery now for 6 years.
Yeah, 2014. So 2014, we added that. So that was a really cool thing to add on, just so we have wine and beer, something else, more options for our customers.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of like one of the first ones, like one of the first places to be. I thought.
In Stark County.
Okay, I thought it was like Northeast Ohio region. But yeah, first one in the county to be both. So like that's really cool. And we're unique as well because we make all of our own wine and beer here.
We do.
So that's the one stipulation, I guess, kind of with where we're located. It's actually a dry township, and you have to. We had to produce everything on site that we sell. So everything that we're drinking today has been made right here on the Maize Valley property. So even if we don't grow the grapes or the hops, and we're going to talk more about that as we get into the tasting.
What's going on here? So,
but yeah, we're primarily family run. We have a lot of family that works here, and
All right. So with that being said, we're going to kind of go over just a couple of tasting notes if you've never done a tasting before, just to kind of walk you through that. If you've, you drink a lot of wine, a lot of beer, you've done a lot of tasting in your time.
Maybe you can just skip this part.
You can just skip this part, which is nice for it being a recorded video. So with that being said too, you can pause, fast forward anytime through this video. If we're going too fast, too slow, whatever, just take it at your own leisure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with that being said, let's talk about wine tasting really quick.
Right.
So there's the 3 S's that we've talked about in the past. So it is you want to swirl, sip, and then sip. I know, I was like, whoo, I almost said it wrong. You want to swirl, so you're going to take your glass, and you kind of like, sometimes on the table is better, you can kind of do it in the air if you want, but then wine usually goes everywhere. So.
And if you are using a smaller glass, like we are here, please just note that you want to watch the amount that you put in here, and you splash some out. So yeah, we're going to give it a little swirl, and what this is doing is actually, it's shoving air into the wine, basically. So it's helping put those little oxygen bubbles in there, and it's opening up the wine essentially, which just aids more oxygen, more flavor, more things to taste.
Definitely.
So you can do this too. People will put their wine in a decanter. Same thing.
And it helps with that too.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're just helping all those notes to come through, so you can kind of get a nice little aroma, and you can see what the wine kind of smells like. Then you sip, and then that's going to give you your flavors. And so that kind of helps when you have like the aromas going with your taste buds, that you need the 2 senses to really actually enjoy the wine and actually experience the entire wine, which is really cool. So yeah, I'll take a little quick sip of this just because.
And while he's doing that, I guess I'll talk about, you can see here on the camera, so if you're following along and you're like, wait, we have the beer package, that's okay. We're tasting beer and wine together at the same time. We wanted to make one video, especially if, you know, say you're a husband and wife or 2 friends or 4 friends, whatever, you know, and you're half and half. It's nice that way just to be able to be watching one video. But we are going to taste the first wine together. So we're going to talk about that. So yeah, we don't you do sniff and sip your beer, but I would not recommend swirling it.
You don't need to.
Don't need to do anything. There's all the bubbles in there. When we'll talk a little bit about this, the only thing that you potentially, and wine too, sometimes you do want to let it warm up.
Yes.
And we'll talk about that as we get into
depending
the tasting.
how how cold your fridge is or where you're keeping your wine or your beer.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
definitely.
So, but yeah, little tasting notes. So each time you'll see Nate do it with his wine. He'll swirl, sniff, and sip. So 3 S's.
Yes, definitely. So, and we also, with that being said, you also have some crackers, and Kara and I got some water. Those are just good things to have while you're doing a tasting of multiple things, just to kind of cleanse your palate. And you can do that as needed. So, however you want to do that, you'll see us do a little bit different. Each of us have our own little tasting technique. So, okay.
Our tasting technique, I love that.
Isn't that cute? Tasting technique. I just came up with that. So anyway, without further ado, let's get on to the fun stuff. So let's go ahead and, like Kara said, we're gonna start with both of us are gonna try the first wine together, so we can sip together, and then she's gonna move on to the beer, and I'll continue with the wine. All right.
So if you haven't yet, make sure you've got your tasting plate out. Go ahead, and if you want to use the I guess we didn't talk about this. If you want to use the same glass, go right ahead. It's not going to make much of a difference. You will want to rinse out in between for some of them, I would recommend. Or if you want to dirty all the dishes, well, you just
we did. All the glasses.
You just get out all the glasses and you can go ahead and pour your samples along. But like we said, you can pause. We're not rushing you. You have all the time that you possibly need with this video. So
definitely.
So hopefully you've got your stuff out, got your glasses, and your first wine ready to pour. So what are we starting with, sir?
We are starting with a Simply White. So I actually have
one of my favorites.
Bottles. I know, mine too. Kara and I both love Simply White.
We have forever, and we talk about it all the time. This one has changed vintages so much over
it really has,
the course of the years.
So this one is a unoaked Chardonnay. So that's all that's in this blend. Sometimes it's a blend, I should say. Sometimes it is. So sometimes it depends on different grapes that might be in it. But this time it is just 100% Chardonnay unoaked. So we don't add any wood chips. We don't add wood chips. We don't add any wood chips to the barrel, and we don't actually put it into a barrel. So it's in a stainless steel vat, so we can kind of control the flavoring there. This one's nice because since Kara and I were already swirled, sniffed, and sipped, it is we pull notes of green apple kind of through.
No, definitely. This is
citrus notes.
I always say this is a bright
It's
wine.
bright, yes, very bright on the tongue. And it's nice too, just because it's kind of like if you ever are looking for, if you drink Sauvignon Blanc, it's, I think, the closest we have, since we don't produce a Sauvignon Blanc here, that's the closest comparison, I guess, especially if you're not aware or familiar with unoaked Chardonnays. Some people aren't. They just think Chardonnay and think of buttery, oaky, vanilla, and this one's totally different.
Yes.
So, with that being said, we are going to pair this with some cheese.
So you have some assorted cheeses in your tray. Just turn our little thing there. Go ahead. You have some assorted cheeses in your tray, and what we're going to go ahead and taste is cheddar. And it really doesn't matter.
Especially for what we're about to talk about.
What we're talking about, the cheese doesn't matter.
The
cheese doesn't matter too much, honestly. So when you're tasting what Nate just did here, and you go ahead and I'll talk for you. So he took a little sip of his wine. He kind of maybe moved it around on his tongue, felt it in his mouth. Then just, as opposed to just swallowing it quickly, think about
take a
what.
Shot.
Yeah, not a shot. Think about those flavors just a little bit. And if you're like, all I taste is wine, that's fine. And then after you take that sip, you're gonna go ahead and eat a piece of cheese.
Or two.
Or 2 or 3 or 4. Let that flavor kind of mingle in your mouth and try to take some notes of what you're tasting. I mean, if you want, even as you're going along, if you're new, you can take out a little pad and paper and write down some things if you're new to this, or if you're curious. I like to do that because it can be hard for me to remember sometimes.
Definitely.
So, and then you can talk about what you're tasting. So we do wine, food, wine.
So yeah, right there, it's just amazing. So we've talked about this in the past too. So the drier wines, especially the drier whites especially, you're gonna have, they're a little bit more acidic. So what we just did, pairing this cheese with the unoaked Chardonnay, the Simply White, is cutting down the acidity and the kind of the dryness. I mean, it makes it softer. So I mean, it's still a dry wine. It's not gonna turn it sweet by any means, but it's gonna make it more pleasant on your tongue if you're not a dry drinker. So it is. It's like what the cheese has is all that fattiness in it, and it coats your tongue. So it makes you actually produce more saliva, which is getting gross, but it's scientific, and that's what happens. And having the extra saliva in your mouth actually cuts down on the acidity of the wine. So it's just kind of cool. It's like a little science experience for your mouth.
And that's why you like, you know, the flavor taste.
And that's why pairings are such a big deal. Like people are like, oh, I don't get pairings. It's like, well, there is a little bit of science behind some pairings. Sometimes it is. It's just whatever food and drink you like together works really well.
And there's nothing wrong with that. That's a pairing too. Like
it is, but there is some science behind why certain wines taste good with certain foods, beers taste good with certain foods.
Absolutely. So. I always tell the story when I first got my husband to start eating sushi, it was like a huge accomplishment for me. But he always struggled with finding something that he liked to drink with it. You know, he'd drink beer and it would be dissatisfying. Well, I finally got him to drink white wine, and we started a little bit on the sweeter side, but now we sit pretty dry when we go out and enjoy sushi. And he won't drink it by itself, but he really enjoys the flavor combination together. So, and he's not really a wine drinker, but he will enjoy that. So, neat thing.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so that's Sinfully White.
Yes, and we know you have bottles at home. So again, if you're gonna enjoy a glass or if you're just gonna enjoy a taste, by all means do what you need to do. If you need to pause, fast forward, go ahead.
And I know if you have beer, you're probably like, hey, what the heck, lady?
Yeah, I'm gonna drink my beer.
We're gonna taste that next, and your beer will pair lovely with your cheese too, and we're gonna talk about that here. But you only have 3 beers as opposed to 4 wines. So. And
that's something too, I guess, just because it made me think of it. That's why we put a lot of this stuff on your tasting plate, because a lot of these things will taste good with a lot of the different beers.
Absolutely.
We're just picking one thing with each wine or beer just to talk about, just to show you. But go ahead and do your own experiment. Try some things like, I wonder if this tastes good with this. I wonder if this tastes good with that. And
you might find, like, you know, when we get down and talk about the cookies and desserts, you know, that's a good example for things that cannot taste good together. And you can taste it's almost like it's like they press the red button or something.
Like, oh, no, not good. Just like does not taste good. So, but yeah, go ahead and experience for yourself.
Yeah, keep that in mind. So, moving on.
Why don't you start with beer since we made the beer drinkers wait so long?
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry about it.
Or you can fast forward. But yeah, here we are. So the first beer that we're going to go ahead and taste is our Peach Fork. So this is one of our flagship beers, one of our most popular, I would say. People absolutely love it. Especially in the summertime. It's great all year round, but it's really, really great in the summer. We have it all year round,
but
yeah, really great. So it is German Pilsner style that we've flavored with peach flavoring. So it's a nice light beer, and then we've just gone ahead and added in some of that peach flavoring. And what I like about this beer is that it's not overly peachy.
No.
It doesn't taste like Jake went and dumped like all these crazy amount of extract into it, you know, giving it that false flavor. It tastes just how it should. It's nice and light and well balanced with the peach flavor.
Exactly.
So this one's really aromatic, so I definitely encourage you to smell it because you should be able to smell all those peaches coming up.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, smell and give yourself a sip. And what we're tasting with this, we're gonna go ahead, and since this is a little bit on this, it's not a sweet beer, but it is on the sweeter side as far as flavorings go. We're gonna taste some meat with that. So if you have some salami or pepperoni on your plate, go ahead and take a little piece of that. And Nate, what are you gonna taste with the meat? So I'm tasting a light fruit beer. And Nate's gonna go in the complete opposite direction here.
Way other side
so
here.
It's really cool, like we were just talking about the versatility of this plate and what you're able to achieve, you know, flavor-wise with it. So yeah, if you're drinking beer, you go ahead and get yourself some peach fork and some salami.
Next, for the wine side of things, we're doing Simply Red. So Simply Red is going to be our red Zin. And this one is it's also another favorite. We just always love usually the Simplies together. Like Simply Red, Simply White are just always usually 2 of our favorites. Simply Red is a little bit more mellow than some of your dry wines. I think that's why we decided to put this in the package as well. It's not so offensive for the...
It's a good stepping stone.
It's a good stepping stone, not so offensive for the sweeter drinkers out there.
I love when we use the word offensive.
I know, it's like, we're just, trying not to offend anybody. But it's really nice because it's nice because it has a nice fruitiness to it without it being sweet. So like, Kara and I always talk about we're not sweet drinkers, but we do really enjoy the Simply Red. And again, it's softer, meaning it's not so when you drink like a Cab or Merlot, the tannins are really aggressive in your mouth. And this one, the tannins are less and they're not so offensive or so strong and so bold. So go ahead and give that a little swirl, and then you want to give that a little sniff. Which this one I always pull berry notes.
Yes,
It's like kind of jammy smelling almost, and like red berries. So I mean, raspberry is always what I pull from this one. It's just usually, I don't know, it's always what I pull.
And this one is really good too, how Nate just said that there's jammy notes in this. If you have any jam, like actually in your fridge, it pairs
well.
Amazing with it. Because most of the time it's gonna pull out those berry notes. So it's just interesting because we are not tasting jam with this.
Mm-hmm.
So
Definitely.
While you're tasting salami here, right?
No, you are actually doing that.
What are you doing with
the
this?
mustard.
I'm sorry. That's right. Yeah, I
Yes.
tasted salami with this.
So I'm actually doing, so you have some assorted mustard here. I'm doing the sweet and spicy. And
So I'm gonna go ahead and let Nate enjoy that, and then just talk about just the tasting here that I had with the peach fork and the salami. So peach fork with the salami, and basically to keep it simple, the saltiness in that salami just really marries well with the sweetness in the peach fork beer, and it just kind of for me it even softens that sweetness a little bit. Sometimes I know I drank a lot of peach fork when we first came out with it. Okay.
she did.
A lot. And sometimes I actually struggle to drink this beer just because, if you drink too much of any one thing, it's sometimes not good. But the salami mellows out the sweetness in this beer and makes it just more enjoyable for me. So if you're like, if you like this beer already, then great, you're gonna love the salami with it. But if maybe you weren't totally a fan, maybe the salami will convince you because that saltiness helps take care of that sweet. So
Definitely.
yeah.
So,
and how was your tasting?
Oh, it's amazing. Because again, it's different because it's not the same science, but it's almost what happened with the Simply White and the cheese. Simply Red with the sweet and spicy mustard, it like calmed down the wine. Mm-hmm. It made it smoother on my tongue. So, and I think that's just from the sweetness, a little bit of the sweetness from the mustard, but then that little bit of a kick. It just really it just blends everything together really nicely. And I think the fruitiness, the ending notes of the fruity jamminess really pairs well with that mustard.
Yeah, and the little bit of sweetness that is in there.
Kind of ties them together.
Yeah.
So, and that's something we'll talk about too. It's just like, usually you don't want, it just depends on what you're drinking. I mean, if you have like something that's, a Niagara, you usually don't want to eat like candy with it or chocolate, just because it's almost like too much sugar going on. But this is nice because it's like, this isn't a sweet wine, there's a little bit of sweetness, but the berry notes coming through kind of trick your mind into sweetness, then they just blend really nice together.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's kind of what happened with this.
Right. Which is cool, and you hear us talk about that a lot. Like sometimes we struggle to find the words, and we're like, oh, it just marries well on the tongue. It just goes.
It does.
But it does, and it's apparent when it goes and when it doesn't go. Because maybe you're like, okay, they just keep saying everything goes together.
No,
you will know. There's been times that it hasn't, and it made me think. One time we had a customer call, and they were like, I love this wine at the winery, and I took it home, and it was horrible. We're like, well, that's weird. Mm-hmm. Opened a couple bottles, we're like, no, this batch seems fine, blah, blah, blah. And we actually asked them what they were eating with it at home. And it was the pairing of food.
Yeah, it just like really.
It was something, they were eating something really weird and drinking the wine with it. And just the two together, you saying that about the Niagara did not mesh well. And yeah, they didn't like that then as a result of getting home. So it just shows too, your environment and experience make that.
Exactly.
So, okay.
All right.
Moving on.
Here we go.
So I need a little drink of water.
Mm-hmm. So while she's doing that, I am moving on to White Wedding. So White Wedding is going to be the champagne style.
That's one of my favorites.
I know, it's
I'm not
so
drinking
good.
any right now either.
Okay, sorry. So this is our White Wedding. So again, another favorite. It has changed a couple times over the years.
Oh, it's changed.
A lot. But anyway.
She's had like a glow up. That's like what I like to say about White Wedding.
She has this beautiful topper on her now, which if you've never opened a champagne bottle before.
Yeah, but let's talk about that a little bit.
I'll talk about that a little bit if you haven't opened it yet. If not, or if you did, maybe you looked at YouTube, or maybe you need to watch YouTube for an actual video.
But we'll start with number one. This must be cold.
Do it cold. Like right now, this bottle I grabbed off the floor is not cold, so I would not open this. And that's why I'm not opening it in front of you, because it'll go boom. So, and there'll be bubbles everywhere. So what you want to make sure this is cold. I guess I should have mentioned that about the other, your beers obviously you want all cold. Simply White should be cold.
Yeah.
Simply Red you want to leave out and not have that chilled.
The
other
tasting
whites,
fail.
yes, the other whites you want to have chilled. So definitely the White Wedding you want chilled so it doesn't go boom. You want to go ahead and take off the foil on the top, and then there's a little like cage on top of it is the best word. You just want to undo that, and then there's going to be a champagne stopper on the top. And all you have to do is just slowly away from anyone and your face.
And any light fixtures.
Yeah, you know, just in case, because sometimes they can get away from you. But from all the bottles I've opened from White Wedding, they don't.
They're very. I just kind of gently work it.
Just work it a little bit. Yep, and you can get a towel too if you're nervous. You can use a towel, but your hand will be just fine. And just work it a little bit, and then it'll just a nice little pop, and you're good to go. And then go ahead and serve like normal.
Yeah.
So.
And this one too, just I guess we should absolutely say this. A normal cork will like not fit down in this.
Yes.
You can purchase though a champagne stopper, and they're like just a couple bucks. And it's
or
just
on Amazon, whatever.
yeah. And it's nice because it helps keep those bubbles in there.
Yes.
And I am actually really impressed with how well they keep the wine
several days.
carbonated.
I mean, depending on how much wine you have in your bottle, like put it back in the fridge and put that back on top, like it'll stay carbonated for several days.
Yeah.
It's really nice. So you can still enjoy this instead of like feeling like you had to chug the whole bottle in one sitting. But it's also nice, just really quick. Like I said, this is champagne style, so you can use this for mimosas. It's really good. Anything like that. So keep that in mind.
And it's not champagne because true champagne comes from Champagne, France.
Yes,
so I always fun things that I've learned, you know, but yeah, true champagne comes from Champagne, France. So it's a champagne style bubbly.
Yes. So this one is actually 100% Maize Valley,
which is really cool.
So like we said, we make all of our beer, all of our wine, but this one we actually grow the grape here. So the grape is called Frontenac Gris, and it's like a little pinky white grape. And it's really nice, so it produces a white wine. We take the skins out so it doesn't turn pink or anything like that. It's a cold hardy grape. It was developed by the University of Minnesota. So it's actually a grape that we can plant, and then during the winter months, like right now, it goes dormant, and then it comes back in the springtime. Yeah. And it'll yield some fruit for us, which is awesome. So we actually have, oh gosh, it's usually like 6 to 8 wines on our menu that usually our tasting list that we have our own grapes in. Because we do grow our Frontenac Gris, which we're tasting today, and then we also have the Frontenac, and then we also have the La Crescent, which we'll talk about that in just a second.
Yeah, so I think that's a really cool thing too, we'll just add as we're going through the tasting here. Being an Ohio winery is hard, you know, trying to find the grapes that
we're in a weird spot because we're not down south where they have warmer weather,
and we're not totally
on
up
the
north
lake where they have like the little bit of buffer from the lake effect once in a while. So it's interesting.
Yeah, so we can get some really, really cold snaps through here, and you know, being a winery now since 2005, you know, the grapes have been here for a little bit, but I think it's just now after all the love and care that they've had that they're really, you know, where they need to be as far like to be able to do production and things like that. So I think it's always really cool that the fact that Todd takes such good care of the vineyard, you know, Todd and Joe, and they do such a nice job to be able to, you know, actually really produce this wine from the grapes and it not just be for show.
Oh, definitely. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, but I was gonna say any other grapes, we get in grapes from other places.
Oh,
so we didn't say that.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, definitely. We have to like pull them in just once in a while just because we can't grow them here, especially our dry reds. They don't grow well over in this part of the country.
But so anyways, White Wedding.
So yeah, I just tasted this, and this one is, I just love this one bubbled. Like, so we have Frontenac Gris by itself as well, which is fabulous. But adding the bubbles just kind of makes it a little bit more tart and a little bit drier, which is nice, which, you know, Kara and I love. That's why we love this wine. But the Frontenac Gris is nice because I think it has like some pear notes. It has some candied notes. So especially the regular Frontenac Gris as well really has the candied notes.
Yes, definitely.
And what we mean by that is just like if you have like dried fruits, you get that like candied flavor. So not like candy, not like Smarties. We're talking about like dried fruits, candied fruits. Not like
Smarties.
My gosh,
I haven't thought about Smarties in.
I love Smarties. They're so tart. They're just like, but they're so good at the same time. Like,
I'm transferred back to 7th grade and just. That bell, what done wrong?
But anyway, back to wine at hand.
I hope someone is watching it.
It's fine. So like I said, I get pear from this one, definitely. Pineapple, citrus can come through as well, depending on what you're tasting and what you're eating it with.
Yeah, and I was saying, like you said, it's if you were to taste this next to the non-sparkled one,
that
totally candy,
different.
And that candy flavor would really come through.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And the Frontenac Gris itself, this one doesn't have it as much just because like with the bubbles and whatnot, but Frontenac Gris sometimes does have like a nice little pink hue to it just because of the grape itself.
Yeah.
So fun little fact right there. So why I'm going to taste this with our candied bacon. So, and then Kara,
I'm going to move on to HOPNESIA.
So you talk about that while I'm tasting the bacon with this.
Yeah, so if you are following along, just reiterating that Nate is tasting the White Wedding and we're doing the beer candied bacon with that.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to talk about that here in just a second. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to move on. We're going to talk about IPA. So this is our HOPNESIA, what I have right here. And this is the one that if you've come out, it's the 6-pack carrier, and it's got the elephant on the front. It's our flagship IPA, which just means, it's one of those first, we always have this beer, but it was one of, like the Peach Fork, one of the first beers that really stuck, and people really enjoyed. So IPA stands for Indian Pale Ale. IPAs can go all across the board. So they can be really bitter, like a West Coast style can have lots of pine notes. They can be softer with their bitterness. It just kind of depends, but it means it's a bitter beer, and people will totally steer away from them sometimes just because they're afraid of that bitterness. And ours is definitely bitter.
Oh, yeah.
I would never lie to anybody and say
it's right there in like your classic IPAs.
Yeah, and I was do you know what's bitter in you off the top of your
70?
Okay, so it's higher. It's not crazy like getting into the 90s or 100s, but it's still up there. So I'm gonna go ahead and sniff it. And you really can smell the hops come through. This is a beer, like I describe it as like a bright beer. You really get, it's really aromatic, just like how the Peach Fork is. So yeah, lots of, I just smell those hop cones. Like I'm almost holding them in my hand. And this was actually, that flavor came through so nice. So we're gonna taste this with the cheese. So whatever you have on your plate, I'm gonna do some Swiss and some cheddar and a little cracker. But this one's really neat because we actually let it warm up a little bit. So we were talking about that at the beginning of the video. Sometimes when something is really, really cold, you don't necessarily pull out all of the flavors because the temperature of it completely cuts that off and it doesn't make it available for your tongue to taste it, basically. But when you let it warm up a little bit, and that's not saying you want to drink your beer warm or at room temperature even, but just not ice cold out of your fridge. Like I know lots of people are fans of frosted mugs. If I'm drinking,
great, but
absolutely. If I'm drinking Blue Moons or any other of those, I don't want to say cheap, but just not a craft beer, I definitely will drink it out of an icy mug because you want that nice and cold. You don't want to taste any of the flavors that come through later. But as it warms up, you can taste a little bit of just like I said, and I get a little bit of that pininess. I really get some citrus that pulls through, and then it finishes just with that nice, well-rounded bitterness. Basically, it's not overly bitter. The tannins don't grab the total back of your mouth. And then take a little sip, and if you eat it with your cheese, the same thing's going to happen like we talked about with the SINFULLY White. So this is a bitter beer. I guess, an even drier. Do we use that word in beer? Okay, I thought so. I'm like, it's a drier for your palate. So when you coat your tongue with the fat from that cheese, it just helps cut through that bitterness and just makes a really, really nice pairing overall. So, yeah.
So yeah, when Kara's tasting that, so when I had the candied bacon, which you all have there, we paired this together just because it has so you have the bacon, which is super salty. So bacon's super salty, and then we have a semi-sweet champagne style that we paired that with. So it's nice because you're having the sweet and salty combination, which we've talked about in the past, and like everyone loves sweet and salty. Like everyone knows about, even if you don't drink, you know about sweet and salty. Like,
absolutely.
Chocolate covered pretzels, like that's just a common thing. It's super good. You know why that tastes good together, and that's the same thing's happening here. Sweet and salty taste good together, but that little bit of the candiedness comes through, and then we have like the bubbles are making it a little bit more tart, a little bit more dry. I think softens that up a little bit, and it just makes it a really well-rounded flavor that comes through. And that's exactly what happened here. Why it tastes so good. So I'm gonna have some more of that while you talk about that.
And that's the same thing. I honestly, tasting it, I prefer the cheddar with this. So we have Swiss and cheddar on our plate, and you have an assortment on yours. I actually really prefer the IPA with the cheddar versus the Swiss. And I think that's because Swiss is a little bit of a stronger flavor. Swiss is very distinct. Cheddar is creamy and delicious, and like we said, it just coats that tongue just a little bit and helps balance out that bitterness that hangs out in the IPA. So if you are not a huge fan of IPAs, basically you want to eat something fatty with it, to kind of help to tone that down. So if you are out somewhere and maybe cheese isn't available to you, but all that's available for good beer is something a little bit more bitter, even nuts would play
Anything,
into the
yeah.
same effect. If you're at home tasting and you're like, oh, I hate IPAs, they're disgusting, or I don't like sparkling wine or whatever, really encourage, just to enjoy that with your food and just to keep trying things. Your taste buds change every, I think, like 7 years or something. That's what Google says. So if you didn't like something, a while ago or when you first were 21, but some time has passed, you might like it now. So give yourself, I guess, that grace there, and and don't be afraid to try new stuff. If you don't like it, honestly, if you go somewhere and you order something and you tell them that you don't like it, they'll probably bring you a new one and not charge you for it.
Definitely.
So who even cares? Like, it's
it's fine.
Not to be wasteful, but what I'm saying is don't be scared.
Or order a sample glass.
Yeah, exactly.
Or 5-ounce glasses.
Yes, or ask for a taste.
Yes,
etc. So.
Really cool. Okay, well, I think we kind of finished up. We were right at the end of that when we kind of had our technical difficulties.
But it's okay. So we're going to move away from IPAs and we're going to move into dessert now.
Yay!
So let's take a second and talk about kind of like dessert tasting maybe and just the important things of that.
Definitely.
Okay.
So with that being said, do you want to talk about like what we're drinking?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So we have, this definitely, I was going to say for Carrot, definitely consider this a dessert beer. You can. What we are drinking for the wine is definitely a dessert wine.
Yep.
So we have the nice little sexy skinny bottle with the nice gold cap, which is beautiful, is our iced Le Crescent. So, and this is an iced wine, not an iced wine. And there is a difference.
What's the difference?
The difference is, so an iced wine, which is what you're drinking here at home, it's our iced Le Crescent. Iced means that we took the fruit itself and then the juice, and then we froze the juice. That is how you get an iced wine. Iced wine, so if you see that, ice, without the D at the end, ice wine, that one, they actually let the grapes freeze on the vines and then they harvest it. So, and that's just a different way to do it. So we decided to do it this way because we didn't want to actually leave the fruit sitting out there until it frosted. We actually wanted to do things quicker and have it ready for you sooner. So that's how we did it. Just a different way of doing things.
Absolutely. It's hard on the grapes too.
It really is. It's hard on the vines.
When you leave the vines out there, not the grape, hard on the vines, not the grapes. When you leave, the grapes obviously become heavy because they become these little frozen. Grapes contain a lot of water, if you don't know. And
water.
They, when they hang there and they freeze, they become these heavy little icicles and it's really hard on the vines. So picking them and then using the frozen juice, I think is better for our vines anyways. So
definitely.
So Nate is tasting the iced Le Crescent.
So this one is wonderful because just like we talked about the Frontenac Gris, Le Crescent is another state wine here. So Le Crescent, we can grow right here. It's another cold-hardy grape developed by Minnesota University again, which is really cool. It's just like a Frontenac Gris as well. They're resistant to diseases too, which is really cool. So they don't get sick, which is nice.
Because plants can get sick if you don't
Just
know.
like
Some
humans.
people don't realize. Different.
You get fungal infections.
Yeah,
and
bacteria
like that.
and stuff like that.
Yeah, so it's good. They're resistant to that. Again, they'll come back in the spring for us, and they'll grow and produce fruit every year for us, which is great. This one too. This one's nice. This one definitely is more citrusy.
Oh my gosh,
more
yes.
citrusy. Le Crescent
I'm not
is
tasting
like
it, but it's
citrus. Like that's what it is. It's just like all your citrus fruits you can think of. Sometimes one will come out more than the other, depending on what you're drinking and eating with it. You never know. But this one definitely, with it being iced, definitely sweetens everything.
Yeah.
So everything is intensified, which is really, really cool, which definitely makes it a dessert style wine. This is one that Kara and I even enjoy, which is really good, especially at the end of a meal or with our dessert, which we have cookies, which everyone loves cookies. So I have a lemon cookie. And you're gonna do a double chocolate cookie, which is great, but for different reasons, because that's gonna pair really nice with vanilla porter.
Yeah.
So, that's why this is where sweet and sweet can be good together.
Well, and desserts are tricky because we talk about lots of different tasting notes. When you're tasting dessert and when you're tasting wine specifically, you want your dessert to be as sweet, if not sweeter than your wine. Or I was thinking of that math sign, greater than kind of equal to.
Exactly.
And that's basically because you want the flavors or the taste to not to war with each other, but to be as big and bold and marry together because they go together because both as intense or as sweet or whatever. So like Nate was talking about, it's cool because the fact that wine contains so much citrus, and then we're literally giving a citrus-based cookie, you're putting those two flavors that just are really gonna, you know, dance off into the sunset together, basically.
It'd be gorgeous. So, and I will talk about that in just a second. So Kara's gonna talk about what she's going to be drinking.
Yeah, so vanilla porter here. This is actually the very first dark beer I liked. I studied abroad in Italy a while ago, and in college. And I remember I tasted my very first porter at a bar there, and I was like, what is this wonderful dark beer that isn't overly heavy? So sometimes we have a bad misconception with dark beers. You know, people are like, oh, that's going to be heavy. I don't want that. And this isn't the case.
Or bitter, which is very unlikely.
Right. And you know, for this beer, for our vanilla porter, I don't think you get that at all. Like I say, their style in general, they're not super heavy. Like they just are going to contain some flavor. So it's a darker beer, but it doesn't have a heavy mouthfeel. It doesn't stick to your tongue or anything like that. It's just a really nice drinking beer, and is just seasoned or flavored very well with that vanilla. And the cool thing about ours is Jake uses real vanilla beans, like the Madagascar ones. So on the days that he's brewing this in the brewery, it smells just like he's opened up 100 vanilla pods, which he probably has, and adding them into the tank then to be able to infuse with the porter. So yeah, I'm gonna give this one. This one is actually really aromatic too.
Oh, it is. It's so good.
See, I smell the vanilla, but it smells almost like the inside of like a bag of like coffee, but you don't get a coffee flavor,
no,
but
like
just that roastedness.
Yes, kind of like a roasty, and porters usually lend to some coffee notes or even some chocolate notes. So this one with the vanilla being added, the actual vanilla.
I say chocolate for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Like roasted chocolate almost. And this is one that it's nice that it sat here on the table for an hour or so. So it's come up not room temperature, but above the keg box temperature. Definitely. And it really can taste all those vanilla notes. And yeah, it just comes, just all the flavor. There's a lot of flavor in this beer, especially with it warming up a little bit.
Definitely, it's so good. So while Kara's tasting that, we'll go back to the iced wine that we have here. So yeah, like Kara just mentioned, the lemon cookie with the citrusy notes of the La Crescent iced wine, they just blend so well together. I mean, they just complement each other so nicely. And it actually, I mean, when I first sipped, you know, the iced wine and the La Crescent, it's almost kind of like there's a lot going on. It's a lot of citrus hits your mouth really quick. And then the butteriness and the, you know, the fattiness of the cookie, again, going back to that fattiness. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, going back to the fattiness is cutting down the acidity in the wine. Because all wines are acidic. I mean, that's just how it is. They just have different levels of it. So again, it's making it more pleasant on the tongue. The flavors just go so well together. And with, you know, you have a lemon cookie, which is some acidity from the lemon in that. And then the La Crescent is a higher acidity as well. So that just blends really well together.
And thankfully, they both have a lot of sugar, so that that also helps. But what you were just saying about the bit, like when you were saying about the cookie, I was like, oh my god, we've never even talked about that before, really. But same thing, fat equals flavor. You hear that? I remember I learned that in when I first started taking my culinary classes. Our chef was like marching that at us, that fat equals flavor, and how important it is. And while it translates differently across the board, it's still like universally, I think, really means the same thing. And here in this application, so if you're eating a steak, obviously the marbleization in your steak, that provides your flavor. But when you're eating a cookie and you're drinking it with beer or wine, the fat in there is not only helping provide your flavor, but helping change it too, and helping change the chemical composition on your tongue. And what we were just saying about how, you know, porters can have a bitterness to them. You know, we said that like, or have like a little bit of a bitter finish sometimes. And it's not like, I wouldn't consider it bad, but people don't always like it, you know, and that's blending with the coffee and the roastness. The fattiness in this cookie completely cuts any notion of that, I guess, and makes it just, it's just a really, really nice marry. Yeah, it is. The chocolate just goes really well, and it's exactly what you would think would pair good with this, you know?
Yeah, definitely. So you guys can keep tasting away and trying different things. Like we've already mentioned a couple little things like, oh yeah, you can try this with that, or like the HOPNESIA with different things, or you know, try like the SINFULLY white with some of the other salty things on your plate.
Absolutely.
Like, it's gonna pair really nicely together. That's why we kind of thought this would be a good selection for you.
No doubt.
So.
And yeah, like we just said, all the things pair for different reasons and different reasons why. So yeah, so don't be afraid to taste or try things, or
Definitely.
yeah, different combinations. We just taste. Oh no, you first and foremost should always drink and taste what you like. So like if you start there. Like maybe you didn't like any of the flavor combinations, but you like something else. Like, hey, like that's okay. Like that's okay
if
too.
you have something at home that you want to try with some of these
absolutely.
drinks, go ahead and do that. Like you can go Vogue. Wow, go Vogue. You can go Vogue too. Go Rogue.
I don't know why that's so funny, but it is.
Madonna. Just Vogue. It's fine. Whew, all right.
But
So
yeah,
you
you
go Rogue and taste some of the things with things you have at home.
Is there any other tasting notes?
I think we are good because Kara and I are known to babble on forever. So
that's why I wanted to make sure
we're gonna stop that right now. So,
but let's just talk for just a quick second. You're already here and you watched the video, so thank you. Like first, you should say thanks for watching our tasting video.
Thank you.
And thank you for purchasing a package and
we hope
giving
you enjoyed this.
Yeah, and we hope that you're sitting with your friends and family because. Let's just be real. This season's been weird, man, So whether it's January or whether you're watching this at the end of March and we're hoping for warmer weather in a few days, we hope that you're doing it with people that you love and care about and want to spend time with, and that's why we created the shareable experience for you.
Exactly.
So like we were saying, you have lots of wine and beer probably still in front of you, so don't be afraid to taste away and try different combinations.
Definitely.
And if you want to know more about what we do,
everything here.
Because obviously we're like really great and stuff.
Yeah,
so
I know.
If you haven't gathered
seeing us, then you just know.
If you haven't gathered that from these last 40 minutes or whatever. But so this is a link, but you can go to Facebook. And that's what we always tell everyone the most reliable and updated information is, definitely. Facebook. So Facebook. And we do, like we mentioned at the beginning of this videos on Facebook every Wednesday.
Every Wednesday live, so that's even more fun.
It is. And we just talk about a wine or beer or something here that's happening at the Winery and Brewery. And you can like, share, love us on Facebook there. Go back and see our other videos. And then it gives you updates when you like our Facebook page about what's happening here at the Winery and Brewery. We do lots of events and all kinds of fun stuff. And we're really looking forward to 2021.
Oh, definitely.
And hoping that we can have some freaking fun.
Have some more fun. Hopefully. We'll see what happens though. So
obviously seeing what happens, but all the updates for things like that are there on the Facebook page.
Don't forget, you can go to our website too.
Oh yeah, it's www.maizevalley.com, and that's where all the information is as well. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, and I think the link to Facebook is there. It's all there on the website. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you again. So enjoy the rest of your wine and beer, and have a good rest of your day. Bye.
Bye.